To neighbors, he was the friendly guy who hosted summer barbecues, dressed as a clown for children's parties, and ran a successful construction business. But behind the painted smile of Pogo, the Clown lived one of America's most depraved serial killers. John Wayne Gacy didn't haunt alleyways or strike in the shadows. He lured victims into his home, tortured them, then buried their bodies just feet beneath where he slept. Born in 1942 in Chicago, Gacy was the second of 3 children raised in a working-class family. His father, an abusive alcoholic, regularly beat and belittled him, calling him sissy and mama's boy. Gacy's longing for approval and a sense of control would define much of his later behavior. Despite a troubled childhood and a series of health issues, Gacy appeared to bounce back. In the 1960s, he moved to Iowa, married, and managed a fast food chain for his father-in-law. But beneath this facade of normalcy, Gacy harbored disturbing impulses. In 1968, he was convicted of sexually assaulting a teenage boy. He served just 18 months in prison, an early red flag ignored by a system eager to move on. By the 1970s, Gacy was back in Chicago, living in the suburb of Norwood Park. There, he restarted his life, launched PDM contractors, joined the local Democratic Party, and even posed for photos with First Lady Rosalind Carter. But in the privacy of his split-level home at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue, Gacy began building a private hell. The most disturbing part of Gacy's persona was his clown identity, Pogo. Donning the red nose and rainbow suit, Gacy volunteered at hospitals and parties, often saying, "You can get away with anything as a clown." It wasn't just a costume, it was camouflage. Gacy used his job to hire teenage boys for temporary work, many of whom were drifters or runaways. They were easy prey. Once inside his home, he'd lure them with drinks, porn, or the promise of money. Then the mood would shift. He often performed a magic trick with handcuffs, asking his victim to escape. When they couldn't, the true horror began. Over several years, Gacy sexually assaulted, tortured, strangled, and killed at least 33 young men and boys. He buried 29 of them in the crawl space beneath his house, stacking them in shallow graves. The stench was unbearable, and neighbors sometimes complained, but Gacy always had an excuse. In 1978, Gacy's downfall began with the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest, a boy last seen leaving work to meet a contractor, Gacy. Investigators quickly focused on Gacy, who had a prior record and a disturbing reputation. A search warrant turned up suspicious items: a class ring, handcuffs, and a driver's license that didn't belong to him. Police placed Gacy under 24-hour surveillance. Over time, his mental state began to unravel. He became paranoid, drank heavily, and eventually confessed, first to his lawyers, then to police. On December 21, 1978, investigators searched Gacy's crawl space and uncovered human remains. The grotesque truth spilled out: bones packed into soil, victims stacked like debris. The full scale of his crimes horrified the nation. Gacy was arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. His 1980 trial was one of the most sensational in U.S. history. The defense argued insanity, claiming Gacy suffered from dissociative identity disorder, but the evidence was overwhelming. His calm demeanor during confessions, detailed memory of the killings, and organized concealment showed terrifying clarity of thought. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours. Gacy was found guilty of 33 murders and sentenced to death. He would spend 14 years on death row at Menard Correctional Center in Illinois. While imprisoned, Gacy took up painting, creating disturbing self-portraits of himself as Pogo the Clown. Many of these were later sold or destroyed. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His final meal included fried chicken, fried shrimp, French fries, strawberries, and a Diet Coke. When asked for his final words, he sneered, "Kiss my ass." His execution was delayed due to a malfunction in the foreline, adding one final twist of grim irony to the long, drawn-out horror of his crimes. John Wayne Gacy's story endures not just because of the scale of his crimes, but because of the dual life he led. He wasn't a lone drifter or shadowy figure. He was a respected community member, A clown, a boss, a party host. He was the smiling monster hiding in plain sight. His case changed how missing persons, especially young boys, were investigated. It led to stronger record-keeping, tighter oversight of ex-offenders, and greater public awareness of sexual predators who hide behind likable facades. The house where Gacy buried his victims was demolished, and the address was retired. But the psychological crawl space he represented, the hidden darkness within ordinary lives, still chills the American conscience.